28 was when I really started experiencing a lot of pressure, and I started putting a lot of pressure on myself. The reality of entrepreneurship really started to hit me. The weight of the decision that I made when I was 21 really started to hit me. My parents, and just the fact that they're getting older too. You're trying to create a life that you've never lived before. You don't know how to get there, but you want to get there. You don't even know where you're trying to go in the first place, but you just know you want to be successful in some way. Figuring out who you are, because you don't know who you are. How do I make more money? If I want marriage, do I want kids? If so, when is it going to happen? Am I okay with it happening later? They say that your biological clock is ticking. What does that mean? What if I find a partner and I can't have kids? Freezing my eggs. Like, wow, this is really an adult thing. This is a lot. Wait, hold on. Mama was a rolling stone. Mama was a rolling stone. Do you guys know that I used to be a rolling stone back in my day? So I'm thinking about how different I was in my early 20s versus my late 20s. I'm gonna just give you a story just to give you an idea. So I'm a lot more refined now, but I remember this is my early 20s. I was on a brand trip. We had gone out the country, and I think it was like 2 days before the trip was over. And I remembered this guy that I had met in another country. And I was like, I should go see him. So I reached out to him. I'm like, hey, what are you doing in the next like 3 days? He's like, nothing. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. I'll be in town. And I literally booked another ticket to go see this man that I've only met once. Okay. That's how impulsive I used to be. I was very, very impulsive when I was younger. And I'm a lot more refined now, thank God. But what really sent me over the edge with that whole experience, and this is when I knew I had to change. This was 2020, right before the pandemic started. So I came home and lockdown started. And this man, this man did not reach out to me. He didn't ask if I was okay. I could have died. It was a global pandemic. I literally caught COVID and everything. He never reached out to me. That's when I knew I had to change my life. That's what I knew. I was internally, I was like, oh, Chizi, you have to change. You can't keep going this way. Now I know more of like my value, my self-worth. My value system has changed a lot. I'm content with not doing things for the plot anymore. I don't feel like I have to be everywhere and with everybody. So that's definitely one of the things that has changed about me since getting older and coming into my late 20s. I really wanted to talk about this today because I feel like this is the season I'm in, and a season that a lot of you guys are in as well, or probably if anything can relate. Just the idea of going, being in your early 20s to your late 20s. I still am a bit impulsive, but I'm not as impulsive as I used to be when I was younger. But I think that's the beauty of your early 20s. Like, there's this magic and youth about, like, not even like, there's a magic and a boldness about your youth, right? Where you just feel invincible and you're very hopeful about the future and everything working out. So you do the wildest things. And I was definitely, as y'all could tell, I was a wild one. And here's the thing, nobody would have ever known. That was the problem, actually. That's why I got away with so much, because nobody ever was checking to make sure I was like not doing what I was not supposed to be doing. Because I was a good girl. Like, I got good grades. I got good grades. I did sports. I was, those are the ones you got to watch out for the most. I've really changed. No, I've really, really changed. So I have learned that as you're transitioning from your early 20s to your late 20s, there can be a lot you have to process through it all. And many times in my journey, I've had to ask myself, Chizzy, is this healthy? are you sure you're okay? Right? And that's why I love therapy so much. Having somebody ask you questions, listen, give advice, help you see things from a new perspective is so amazing. It's honestly just been helpful with gaining more tools to have in my tool belt as I become an adult, and they can do the same for you. BetterHelp is the sponsor of today's video, and they are on a mission to make starting therapy easier. It's super easy to get started. All you have to do is fill out a questionnaire, and you will get matched with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. And no worries if your therapist isn't the right fit, you can easily switch therapists at no extra cost. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.3 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. Click the link in my description box to get started, or you can go to betterhelp.com/my link right here, okay? And you can get started with 10% off your first month of therapy. Shout out to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's video, and let's get back to it. We got to ask the question, were our parents right? Were our African parents right about going to school and getting your higher education? And do I wish I went to medical school? I think to an extent they were right, actually, because I think as you get older, you start realizing, or maybe your priorities shift and you realize how important financial stability is. Like, you actually need to be financially stable. And sometimes, your dreams can't necessarily pay the bills, and you need something that's going to pay the bills. But I say yes and no because I do think, especially as a minority, getting your education is so important. Like, it's necessary not only to like open up opportunities for you career wise, but networking as well. Like, it's going to open up your network to people that you wouldn't meet anywhere else. I think it's a great time and buffer to like help you figure out what you want to do in the first place. I would tell anybody you should at least be getting your bachelor's degree. Like, no matter what, you should get your bachelor's degree. Or if you don't want to get your bachelor's degree, go to trade school, sure. But I do think you should get your bachelor's degree at least. And then after that, doctor, master's degree, etc. I feel like that's going to depend on each person, right? But we're not going to sit here and act like higher education isn't actually a really good strategy for life. I think I think you should consider it for sure. So what I will say is also school is something that I'm thinking about now, funny enough. So sometimes I'm like, would you look at that? My dad told me to go back to school back then and I didn't. But I still wouldn't go back to medical school because that's not something that um is as I don't know, it's just not that important to me, right? It's not the thing that I feel like I'm called to. I really do feel like I'm called to media, right? So I feel like I'm in the right space. But I would love to go back to school to just like learn about the landscape of media, to learn about business. But I'm happy that I actually waited. Maybe not this long. I don't think I needed to wait this long. I could have probably gone back at like 26. But I'm happy that I waited a bit just to get life experience and work experience to help me make a more informed decision about the education that I want post bachelor's degree. So yeah, all in all, maybe our parents were right. And also, nobody talks about how hard entrepreneurship is. Like, well, let me tell you something. Entrepreneurship is not what is cracked up to be. Like, yes, you can get an amazing return on it if you do what you need to do and you have favor and all that stuff, but it's a lot of responsibility. And I think the older you get, the more you realize, at least I can speak for myself, the older I get, the more I realize how much responsibility being an entrepreneur involves. You are responsible for your financial success as an entrepreneur. So it's like whatever you put in is what you get out of it. And sometimes that's even not the case because maybe you're working really hard on a business and then it doesn't do so well. And you're like, wait a minute. So, and then you still got to pay bills and all that stuff. So I do think the older that you get, the more you realize like, whoa, this is a big decision and the weight of it can create a lot of pressure. So I don't think everybody's called to entrepreneurship. So, and because of that, I think you should go to school. I think you should go to school and make sure you have that um backing. Let's talk about, is there more pressure in your early 20s versus like your late 20s? I feel like there's different types of pressures for both seasons, right? So the early 20s pressure is like you're trying to create a life that you've never lived before. So it's kind of, you don't know how to get there, but you want to get there. Or you don't even know where you're trying to go in the first place, but you just know you want to be successful in some way. So there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of just stumbling and figuring it out and failing and messing up and figuring out who you are because you don't know who you are. It's just stressful. No, honestly, you couldn't pay me to go back into my early 20s. I'm not going to lie to you. But but I think it's also beautiful. I think it's a really beautiful time because there's so many possibilities. There's so many possibilities, like, and because of that, you're so hopeful. You know, you're so full of dreams, and if you lean on that, it will actually propel you. And actually, I think that's what made me work so hard in my early 20s because I was so hopeful. I had such big dreams. And because of it, I worked hard. Like I just kept working towards it. Did I know if it was gonna work out? Not necessarily. But I was like, I'm gonna figure it out. Um I was so bold. Oh my gosh. But I remember being so like lost, confused. I was like, who do I talk to? How do I get there? But I think something that you need to know if that is, a space that you're in right now is like everybody's trying to figure it out. Like, and eventually you will start to like figure it out. You will start to land on your feet. And but the funny thing about it is once you start figuring it out and landing on your feet, more likely than not, another shift will come, and you got to figure that part out because you're gonna get older. You're gonna go into different seasons, so you're constantly changing. So the comfort zone switches and changes and moves. So I think we all, whether you're in your early 20s or late 20s, you're gonna have to get used to, or even older, um, you're just gonna have to get used to change and not knowing and not always being comfortable. That's it, honey. I feel like with your late 20s, who the pressures in your late 20s is definitely, that's when reality starts creeping in. Like that's when reality starts, you know, your late 20s slash early 30s is when you really start to see the results of the work that either you put in or you didn't put in. And you also start to see the results of other people and their lives as well. I remember in high school, one of my teachers was like, "You're gonna see in 10 years when it's your 10-year high school reunion, you're gonna see the people that, put in the work in their 20s and the ones that didn't." And she ain't say one lie because some folk, I'm like, all right, but there's hope for you. Don't worry. Don't worry. There's definitely hope. Um, but yeah, no, it's a real thing. Late 20s is, I don't even know where to start from. Where do I go? Late 20s is a lot. Technically, you can do this at either point in your life, but in your late 20s specifically, it's also because of social media, it's very easy to start comparing yourself to other people because this is when, again, we start settling. So you start seeing the people that bought the house, people start getting engaged. Oh my God, I just had my first kid. Somebody just made their first $1 million. One just landed on the cover of a magazine. Hey, Essence. Or somebody got a promotion. Like you really start to see people like share their achievements. And if you aren't somebody that maybe has gotten it together by your late 20s, this can cause a lot of mental pressure on you. And I really, 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 really feel for anybody that's in that position right now because I think there's a misconception by your late 20s you should have everything figured out. And I don't really think that's the case. Like the early 20s was the trial period technically. And now you have to figure out, do you want to continue? Do you like where you're at, right? Do you want to continue in this way, or do you want to pivot? That's something that I like have been reading about and just like learning about. I don't remember the person that said it, but it's like, at least when it comes to career, because you've had like a couple of years now working and just experiencing life, now you can use that information to decide if you want to, hone in or zone in on your career, or if you want to pivot. Late 20s is a really great time to start pivoting. So, yeah, I think that's another thing that you start thinking about, which could just, create pressure. For me though, late 20s has definitely created way more pressure for me. When I turned 28 years old, that's when I was like, hmm, like I really started thinking, and I don't know if it's that my frontal lobe fully developed or what, but 28 was when I really started experiencing a lot of pressure, and I started putting a lot of pressure on myself. I think one, because I'm an entrepreneur, the reality of entrepreneurship really started to hit me year 28. Yeah. Um, it was actually the first year as well that I made less. So I was like, it scared me because I'm like, wait, hold on. And I knew I was making less because I was doing less. So that's why I was making less. But I was like, no, wait. You mean to tell me like I'm responsible for my own financial success as an entrepreneur? Is this really what I want to do? So I had to really ask myself like, is this something that I want to continue doing? So yeah, I think the weight of the decision that I made when I was 21 really started to hit me at 28. Now, again, I do feel called to this space, so I don't think it was a mistake that I chose to go full time, but I was just like, "Dang, girl, is this really what you want to do?" So that's one thing. And then another thing that's really been hitting me in my late 20s is just thinking about like low key my parents and just the fact that they're getting older too. Um, and it's just like, what does that mean? Like, where it stresses me out when I think about it. That is also something that creates a lot of pressure. Also having to reparent your parents because now that they're getting older, they just slowing down. They don't want to do as much. If you don't come from money and you start making money, like helping them out, and it's just like, wow, this is really an adult thing. This is a lot. And I think honestly, thinking about the fact that my parents are getting older is more than anything, I think what creates pressure for me personally when it comes to the idea of marriage and kids. And because I'm a woman, and if you're a woman listening to this, more likely than not, because you're a woman, like as you enter your late 20s, marriage and kids is something that immediately becomes so loud, not only for yourself, but externally too. Um, so, yeah, that's something that like you have to think about, that I've been thinking about a lot in terms of like, if I want marriage, do I want kids? If so, when is it going to happen? Am I okay with it happening later? What does that mean? If I want kids, I'm pushing 30. They say that your biological clock is ticking. Um, what if I am not going to be able to give birth naturally? Do I care if I'm not able to give birth naturally? What if I never am able to conceive? What if I find a partner and I can't have kids? God forbid, but like, what if? Like, I'm starting to think about all of these things and just even like, do I even want this at all? Do I want marriage? Do I want children? And if so, why? You know? So those are a lot of the things that I'm thinking about. Also, another thing, freezing my eggs. Like, I don't know if anybody has ever mentioned that to you, whoever you are listening, but I had a friend and she was like, she's a bit older. So she was like, you should really look into freezing your eggs if are not gonna have kids right now. And I was like, I didn't even think about that. So I looked it up. First off, it's expensive. Like, whoa. But that's also another thing that I'm like, oh, should I do that? What does that even mean? Does that mean I don't have faith? But also, it's like, what if it's just a precautionary thing? I don't know. So it's just a lot. It's a lot. Another big one is money. I mean, Money. I think once you enter your late 20s and you really start pushing 30 and beyond, you really think about the fact that you have to be financially responsible for yourself. And depending on, the cards that you're dealt in your own life, maybe there's other people that you have to be financially responsible for as well. And it's like, you really got to think about it. Like, how am I going to make money? How am I going to survive in this country and just this economy? How do I make more money? One, just very important that don't beat yourself up if you feel like you wasted your time when you were younger. Because I feel like that's something that some of us probably are feeling and experiencing. Because I have friends, I talk to my friends, all of us are in different places in our lives. And I do think some of us can beat ourselves up and be like, I should have did this, I should have did that. But it's like you also didn't know. Like you didn't know. We're all doing life for the first time. So, and maybe somebody did tell you to do something and you decided not to. And now you're like kicking yourself in the foot because it's like, "Ugh, I should have did this and I would be in such a better place." But it's like, okay, but you're not. So what are we going to do from now? I think all you can do is really focus on your now and setting yourself up for the future. And that's another thing. I think in your late 20s, early 30s, or what, honestly, whatever, we be making ourselves feel like we're so old. Like we are running out of time and there is no more time and da 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 da. Yo, you're still a baby, low key. Life is actually just beginning. I was talking to an elder in the church, and he had asked me at my age, and I was like, "Oh, I'm 29." And he was like, "Oh my gosh, you're so young." When I tell you that made me feel so good, I feel like I haven't heard that in a while. Because especially as a woman, they really start making you feel like you're so old. Like once you start pushing 30, I guess because of the biological clock thing, but it's like, hold on, girl. I'm still a young spring chicken. Chill. So it actually made me feel really good to hear that. Because I'm used to being the baby in just like my friend groups because I've always acted older and I've always been around older people. So they're always like, oh my God, you're so young, you're so young. But it's like once I turned 28, 29, I was seeing people younger than me. I said, oh, wait a minute. But yeah, so it was nice to hear that. I'll say that. But yeah, it's just a reminder that there is really so much time. Like if you're still in your 20s, calm down. Like calm down. I feel like we definitely feel like everything has to be figured out right now. And it doesn't. And that's not to say like don't work hard and don't set yourself up for success and all that stuff. But at the same time, calm down. Live a little. All that to say, like, you really do start thinking about just the pressures of like caring for yourself financially and just working that out. And money, money can give you mental health problems when you start realizing, oh, I need money. Like I need money. You need money to survive. Not only do you need money, you need good money management skills, right? You need to understand financial literacy. You need to learn how to budget. You need to understand investing. I think that ties into the aspect of like school and career and all of those things and figuring that out because that's going to be the thing to make you money, right? Please, you need to understand, especially the ones in your early 20s, do not blow your money. One of the best things that I did for myself, sorry, I'm getting passionate. One of the best things I did for myself in my early 20s was get a financial advisor. And he sat down with me and he literally like set me up he got me to create an emergency savings account with like 3 to 6 months of expenses. Well, first off, we calculated all of my expenses, like what am I paying for, all that stuff. And then from there, we calculated what an emergency savings would be. He set me up with a high yield savings account. So this would be my short term savings account. And I use the high yield savings account to also have a separate account for all of my taxes that I would have to pay. Because I'm an entrepreneur, you have to, or if you're a freelancer, you have to pay taxes on everything that you bring in. So that's another thing. And a lot of entrepreneurs get in trouble because they don't save for their taxes. They'll just get like whatever check they get, they'll just use that, but you actually have to pay 30% of that, whatever you're getting. So he set me up with that. And then he set me up with a stocks. What's that in? Essentially savings accounts, right? That are for more long-term savings that are compounding in interest, right? So it's essentially you're putting it in um places so that it can grow on its own. So you can put it into the S&P 500, you can put it in stocks and bonds. Bro, he did that. He just set me up and had me do that. We also created life insurance. All of if not for that man, I don't know where I'd be. But it was the best thing that I could do in my early 20s because what you don't realize is the earlier you start saving, the better, especially with compounding interest. Not that this is supposed to be a financial thing, but I'm giving you some free financial advice because we need it. We need it. So yeah, so definitely learn how to budget, learn how to save. Please, in your early 20s, that's the best thing you can do for yourself. If you squandered your money in your early 20s, if you are in your late 20s now, get it together now immediately because it's not just you, right? If you want to have a family when you're older or in the coming future, you need to like save for this stuff. You need money for them. I've been thinking about kids like, wait, though. What I'm making is okay for me to survive. What if I have one, two, three? Huh? That's crazy. So I got to make more money. And that's it. But regardless, I think what I'll say is wherever you are in life, change is inevitable, right? Seasons shift. And I think it's important to embrace where you are because you're not going to be there forever. So if you're just starting out in life, it's your early 20s, enjoy that period. Make smart decisions that's going to set you up for later, but also live in the moment. Or if you're in your late 20s, like embrace where you are right now because you're never going to be here again. Like that has always been my motto for life. And I think it's gotten me pretty far. Just recognizing that I'm never going to have this time again. I'm never going to be this age again. So you might as well enjoy it. Maximize it, okay? Yes. So yeah, celebrate yourself, celebrate where you are, wherever that is. Because at the end of the day, you're alive, baby. We're alive. Like, come on. There's so long as you're alive, there's hope. So I don't know about you, but I'm excited. I'm excited for the future. And if you're not, that's okay. I hope and pray that the excitement of life touches you. I really do, because there's a lot to live for. So yeah, that's it for this episode. I'm so glad y'all tuned in to I Guess I'm an Adult Now, the podcast. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one.